Hello and welcome to this video from LightSpeedStats.com. I'm going to demonstrate now why this horse racing software is different to everything else you will have used and why it is the best horse racing software out there for any Betfair trader who really wants to improve as a horse racing trader. So in this video, I'm going to give you an overview guide of the software, what it does, what it's for, who it's for, and what advantages it will give you in the market. So before we actually get to the stats engine, which I think is kind of the meat and potatoes of the software, probably the time you're going to spend on the most, I wanted to have a quick look at the homepage view, the meetings view, and show you what there is there. So as you can see on this page here, we actually have the meetings for the day. We scroll down, there's a few more, quite a lot of meetings today, obviously. Summertime, probably a few evening ones. Take advantage of this lovely weather we're having today as I film this. This is brilliant if you just want to take a snapshot and look at a few races. You might even want to look through the cards yourself, and we have accommodated that. So if you click race list, so let's say you're looking at Dundalk as a meeting, and you click race list, the list of races will come up. All you need to do there is select which race you want. So let's say we just want to look at the first race, which is the 145 Irish EBF. That race will already happen because it's 5:30 when I'm filming this. And you've got the race select here. So let's have a look. We're going to have a quick look across here. You can see we've got the number, the draw, the name, country, sex of the horse, age, weight. Now, what you can do with all these things is you can actually order them. So you could actually find out in a click of a button, okay, which one's the top, which one's the bottom. Okay, we've got pace, we've got BSP. Now this is a maiden, so this isn't really a great race because the horses haven't run that much for us to have a ton of data. Let's see if we can get one where they're not. So let's go to... Okay, so we're going to a race that hasn't happened yet, so we can actually see the data before the start of the race. So as you can see, I've ordered the weight here. You could use the official rating. Now, if you notice, every time I hover over, you can probably see this kind of box above that explains what it is. So here it says the horse's official rating in this race. The arrow shows how it's current or compares to last time. The tread line oldest on the left, shows how its official rating has changed over time. Okay, you've got the pace history, pace rating. Now, the higher the better for this. This is 0 to 12. And again, if we order this, we can see that So Messy is the number one pace rated horse here. Got the form, days since last ran, class change, whether it was up, down, or stayed the same. Runs, the amount of runs they've done, win percentage. Dob percentage is a good one. I use this quite a lot, try and find horses that have dobbed a lot. I especially like horses in races where a lot of the other horses haven't dobbed very much, which isn't the case here, so this wouldn't interest me as a trade because there's lots of horses that dob quite regularly. And then you've got the course distance, whether they've won at course distance, average SP, and then the back price and lay price, which obviously is going to be important. But obviously, if you want to get in terms of the actual odds at that moment, you can obviously head onto Betfair to get hold of those pretty quickly, just looking at the racing on today's card, and that will give you basically where you're going to want to go to actually place the trades. Okay, so I quite like just having both of these open at the same time, just kind of flicking between the two. Anyway, so you've seen the kind of general overview of the race cards there, okay, and I can go into those in a bit more depth if you want. If you want some help on those, that's fine. But what I really want to get to here is the strategy builder, which, like I say, is going to be your meat and potatoes. And that is this kind of noughts and crosses game, I like to call it, up here. But when you hover over it, you'll see the word strategy builder, so you'll know you're not on the wrong thing. I'll just show quick filters, just quickly. If you really want to filter things quickly and find out what horses are going to suit your particular strategy for that day, and you don't want to build a strategy, but you just want to look for certain classes and things like this, you can just do the quick filters, fill these in, and then it will actually filter those races out for you. This is the daily qualifiers list. So once you have your strategies and you've put them in place and you've turned them on, you will see your upcoming qualifiers for each race. And when you click on the race, obviously I've got loads of strategies on here. I've been building them for years. A lot of you guys will just start with one or two. so it'll be much easier for you to kind of look at this and make sense of it. But as you can see, I've got Penny Express has qualified for 4 of my strategies here. I'm in the 6th. Anyway, so let's go over to the strategy builder as promised. And as you can see here, once you bring this up, I've already got strategies in here. Now, unless you've requested that we add one for you, which we do. So if you're a new member, we will send you a form. If you fill out that form, we will then give you a strategy based on your answers for you to start working with, okay? But if you don't have any strategies here, don't worry, because you can either create a new one by clicking New Strategy, right? And it's called New Strategy 4, so I'll go and find that here. And you'll see it. I just clicked it in. You can see there's New Strategy 4, so I can create that strategy. The other thing you can do here is you can go to presets, okay? And obviously, the purpose of presets, so I've gone too far. So go back to the first page if that happens to you. You can see we've actually got 5 strategies already preset put in here. Different strategies. These aren't tips per se, but they are very much here to help you, give you a start, kind of strategy to start with, something you might want to edit, something you might want to work on yourself. And you can see actually how a strategy that's done well has been created. You can start to look at this stuff and go, okay, I can see they've used course here, runners, horse age. I guess that's important. Runs, Betfair starting price. This is for Dobbs, okay? So, or for prices coming in, sorry, which is a bit like a dog. Now, what I will say here is that I think sometimes people get a little tripped up, okay, when they look at the strategies and they're like, that looks quite complex, okay? But there's no need. You don't have to start with something that complex. So let's have a quick look at these and have a look at the high price faves. And then again, another complex one there. So let's look at creating one ourselves, and we're going to look at what we can do to create a strategy, how we can use the software, because that's ultimately, going to be your bread and butter. So we've already created the new strategy by clicking New Strategy, but you can do that if you haven't already. And then we're going to go to that new strategy, and now's the time where we need to pick a rule. Okay. Now, if you've already been given a strategy and you want to import it, what you would do is click this import button, select the file from your PC, and then click upload, and that will do that for you. But in this case, we're just going to create our own strategy. So let's go for, what should we go for here? We're going to go for a really simple one that a lot of people like to do, which is beaten favorite. Okay. And you can see how many options there are, so you can kind of pick the kind of thing you want to create. And again, this is the beauty of this software. Like I say, you're not going to get this kind of depth anywhere else, but it doesn't have to be confusing for you or complex. I'm going to show you how to create a strategy really easily now. So, beaten favorite, and we're going to add that rule. Okay. Now, usually we're going to want the beaten favorite to have been beaten in 100% of its last 1 runs, okay? So that means in the last race it ran, it was a beaten favourite, okay? Now, you might want to kind of change those stats a bit, but with beaten favourite, that's kind of the done thing, okay? And all we're going to do here is click next, okay? So this will give us beaten favourites. Now we need to decide what we want to do in terms of our bet. So let's say we're going to have... So a lot of people think that if you back beaten favourites, you'll make money. We're about to find out if that would actually be the case according to Betfair's own data. So let's go for backing here. And we're just going to go any odds here. So price range. And what you want to put in here is the odds range you want to use. So we're just going to use the whole Betfair odds range. This is 1.01 to 1,000. We're going to look at a betting window of 10 minutes before the off and the official race start, okay? And that's the default setting. We're not going to worry about number of qualifiers, but you can restrict that if you only want to have 1 selection per race, per se. You would just select your minimum and your maximum. Traded amount, you can do the same if you want to select races with higher liquidity, or maybe even lower liquidity. Maybe that's what interests you. You can choose favourites to include certain favourites or exclude certain favourites. Outsiders and favourite prices. But here's the thing, right? This extra stuff, it's not necessary. So if you are sitting there and you think, oh, it's a bit complex for me, I think people get tripped up when they try and make it too complex. Close your trades, okay? We're just going to do this as a straight bet strategy for now. So we're not even going to change anything here. We're going to leave it at the straight set. But if you have an exit price as target, you can use the target price with a stop loss. So you can put that in if that's what you wish to do. You could look at profit in terms of points. So do you want to make 1 point, which should be 100% profit? Maybe you want to make 0.5 points. But we don't want to use that. So we'll get rid of that for now. And we'll leave that at that. Build your bank. Again, this is another one you don't have to do anything for. We're just going to use £1,000 bankroll, looking at £1 flat stakes. You can change this if you want to use percentage of bank rather than flat stakes, or profit and liability rather than stake, okay? But that's up to you. Again, the defaults are pretty solid on this. You don't need to change anything particularly unless you really want to. Here's the bit where I would do something, and that is when you customize results, okay? So what this will do on this breakdown, this is a really important thing, okay? This is where you choose what results you want compared, okay? So we're going to have month and year, but I also want to look at, for this beaten favourite, I want to be able to look at, well, what countries work well? What courses work well? What going works well? What class? Now, there's loads of stuff you can select here, and it's really up to you. I want to look at whether the handicap, whether the number of runners makes a difference. Race distance. Let's have a look. Anything else? Age is always a good one I like to look at. BSP as well. Work out, is there a certain odds range that works well for your horses? I don't think I'm going to add any. I mean, we could look at gender just because actually you'll be surprised how often horse gender actually affects results. But you can look at all of this stuff. There's so much you can look at here, okay? And this might be something you want to do. You want to have a look at. Do you want to look at one at course and distance? But I'm not really going to look at this stuff here. There's a lot you can do with jockeys. There's a lot you can do with trainers. Again, jockey-trainer combos as well, okay? So this is another example where this can be as simple or as complex as you want it to be, but it's not complex to set up, okay? So that's that, 15 columns for the columns, that's fine. Okay, so we're going to run this strategy. Now, we've chosen quite a lot of groupings for our breakdown, so when you run a strategy like this, it might take a couple of minutes. But again, when you're building a strategy, it's well worth just waiting, because think of the huge amount of data this software is tracking. And again, this is why it's different really to any other software, is that actually the amount of data it's pulling through for you to do this back testing is incredible. And we are now going to back test and see how the beaten favourites would have got on using this strategy here. So I'll wait for that to load. Okay, so actually it would have made a loss, which doesn't particularly surprise me here. 18% strike rate, minus 5% ROI, okay? But this is only really half of the story, because, and you can see, look at this profit graph, just heading straight down, right? But what's interesting here is that we've now got group breakdowns we can look at. So we can look at time of year, and you can see, I mean, it's going to be difficult with this because most things are going to be losing, obviously. But April 21 actually made a profit, which is surprising considering how many of them lost. But let's look at something a bit more kind of easy to get our head around to start with. So the year losses are quite heavy until you get to this year, which is actually in decent profit, 351 points. Okay, interesting. Country, does that make much of a difference? Well, Northern Ireland's ROI is way less, but obviously a lot less trades in Northern Ireland on this strategy. Let's look at the going. Good to soft actually performed the best. And you can see all these struggling here. Class 5 actually did well. Class 1 did well, which is an interesting one to look at, isn't it? So maybe class 1 might be something you look at here. Handicap race, non-handicaps performing much better than the handicaps, but obviously neither of them profitable, so nothing you sort of want to jump at there. But it does show that non-handicaps, seem to be doing better. And again, we've got a number of runners here, and you can see obviously you're going to get some varying results on those. Race distance, age, looking at that, you can see some of the age differences. But what I would do here is I would look at using one of these. So one of these things might stick out to you where you go, well, class 1 races are 220 points up. That actually interests me. 10% ROI. Okay, quite a lot of trades, 2,710. It's not like there weren't any trades. That is solid. So what we're now going to do, this is kind of the beauty of what you can do with the software. And the reason I only do this kind of one at a time is I don't want you to kind of just backfit your strategies so that it's like, oh, my strategy works really well. Look, but all you've done is get rid of everything that doesn't do well and keep the things that do. But this stands out so much, this category here. And it kind of makes sense. The best horses, when they get beaten, they've got more incentive to win. Chip on their shoulder. Now, not necessarily the horses, because horses can't have chips on their shoulder about things they don't really understand. But what about the trainers? What about the jockeys? They've just seen their horse beaten as a favourite. Do you think they're happy about that? No, they want to go out next time and prove it wrong. And the horse obviously has the ability to get it done. There's a little theory I'm throwing out there. I don't know if that's right or not. It doesn't actually matter. What really matters is the profit and loss. So what I'm going to do here is we're going to go to the horse selection rules. We're just going to add one more thing in, and that is just going to be class. All right. So let's get class here. I'm going to add that rule. And we're just going to keep class 1. Even though a lot of the other classes did well, we're just going to keep class 1 here. And as you can see, we've added that now, class, value, class 1. So now all we're simply going to do is just run the strategy again and look at the back testing. Now we know what the profit's going to be because we saw that. So yeah, £220 profit. A fairly solid looking strategy, just straight off the bat, right? But then we look at the snake, and this is probably where the problem comes in, because you can actually see that the snake's been going down for a long time. Then it suddenly jumps in March with 342 points profit, which makes me think it might have had a massive winner or something for that to have happened. So what I want to look at on this next breakdown is to look at, well, what's working within class 1. So let's have a look at the odds, because this is what interests me here. And we can see that, yeah, we obviously had a winner at over 100 at one point. How many wins have we had? Is it 2? Yeah, we had 2 wins at that price range. And obviously that does help. So this is going to be, if you set up a strategy in that way, this is going to be a very all or nothing strategy, right? And like I say, this is a very basic example of what you can do here. But you might look at this and go, well, I can see that certain odds ranges work better than others, but what else is having a real effect on it? Once we get past that, the handicaps, how do they do in class 1? Well, the non-handicaps, really well, right? So one thing you could look at doing here is going, and again, when I talk about backfitting, I think sometimes you have to be sensible with the stuff you're looking at. When you look at something like this, which clearly shows that non-handicap works a lot better than handicap, right? And it's not even close, right? You're talking 400 points difference. And non-handicaps actually had a lot more trades to them. So I don't think there's anything wrong in going, okay, well, here, let's just look at the non-handicaps, right? So again, you can go back. Now, the other thing you could do is you could save the strategy, okay, just like that, and you will see it come up in your strategies bunker. And this strategy is now saved, right? New strategy. We're going to call it beat and fave. Okay, there you go. That will now go back to the start. So let's go back to the start because it's in alphabetical order. Makes it easy to find. I'm going to call this version 1.0. Okay, so I'm going to call this 1.0. It's been saved. We'll save it again just after we name it. I always like to do that, even though I don't think you actually need to. And now we've got these criteria. But what I want to do now is add in that handicap criteria. But what I don't want to do is to leave behind the original strategy, because this is how you overcome backfitting. If you're using a strategy, you want to keep your original strategy and then have a version that's tweaked as well, probably multiple versions. Because what you can do is you can then split test those strategies against each other. And this is where it gets really clever. So let's add the handicap rule in. And we don't want it to be a handicap. We want it to be a non-handicap. Okay? So we're adding that rule. What we're going to do here is we're going to click Save New. And this adds a new version. So as you can see here, we're on the beat and fave. I've done it under new strategy, hasn't it? Yeah, it's done it there, okay. So the new version, we're just going to call it 2.0 beat and fave, okay? Call it beat and fave 2 on here. But that actually isn't the best way to do it. So I'm going to show you something else that works really well. And as you can see here, it's actually saved it as part of the original one. But one thing you can do to create a new version very simply is to just click Create New Version, okay, and that will do that for you. And you end up with a third version here, so we can call this one 3.0. So I've now got 3 strategies, okay? The second one has non-handicap, class, and beat and favour in it. So let's run that. We know what the result's going to be. It's going to be 312 or something like that. 316. So we know that this is solid, right? Again, you can look at the graph. We know that stories because of that higher win that was had. Now, for version 3.0, let's go to that and let's add one more thing here. So what we need to have a look at, again, is those results. I'll just run it again quickly. This is what you'll be doing. A lot of the time you will be running strategy results, trying to find out what happens. And the less data you have in a strategy, the quicker it runs, as you see there. But this is quite good, right? So we've got the third version now. And I want to look at kind of one more thing we could possibly look at in terms of what's going to really help this strategy. So let's have a look at race distance. Not a ton I'd want to change here, to be honest. Actually, some up and downs. Horse age. Again, so I mean, you can see horse over 10 haven't done particularly well, but not a ton of trades to look at there. So I wouldn't particularly want to get rid of that. I think odds is going to be an interesting one because we know that we had these big winners look at 100 plus. They've really skewed the results. But we can also see that the two odds ranges below those haven't performed that well. So that might be something to look at as well with this strategy. Like I say, it's going to be a bit of an all or nothing strategy. You don't lose a lot from starting at 2.0 either, because there's not a lot of profit between 1.01 and 2.0. So again, you might want to look at those odds moving forward. So the one I'm going to look at here is just country, okay? Because again, Britain and Ireland, it's so clear that Britain is better for this strategy. So we're going to go to horse selection rules again. We're going to add country, which is at the top, I believe, and add that rule. And that's the last rule we're going to add to this. We're just going to add Great Britain, and then that's that next. We're going to save that. Actually, we can run this strategy now because it'll do it quite quickly. It did last time. And we'll run this strategy. See these results. and we know that 341.71. Okay, save that, done. Okay, so these three are saved, they're all different. And what you can do here now is you can look at how they perform. So I might go, right, okay, cool. But I want to know that this works moving forward. So I'm going to come back, let's say in a month, right? I'm going to come back and I'm going to run these results again. And specifically, I want to see how next month performed, okay? And you can do that really easily. And I'll just show you quickly how to do that. So let's go back to the original one that's just got our first filter there with the beat and fave and the class, which is kind of what we started this strategy with. So as you can see here, as you scroll down, on this bit here, this is what I like to use for a month, you can actually look, and August is 2.87 points down, right? So let's say you come back at the end of September and you look at September's results, you've then got a month and a half's results because we're halfway through August. That's decent, right? You can see. But most importantly, you can compare the three results between the three strategies, okay? And again, you don't have to do it in this kind of convoluted way that I've done it here. You might just want to have one version and you're happy with it. You're not worried about backfitting or anything like that. It's just what I'd recommend. And I think it's just a really good kind of thing and idea to get started with. And like I say, this strategy specifically, not one that would greatly interest me just because of how kind of all or nothing it is. You're kind of just really hoping to hit that big winner, and I'd maybe look at some odds limits just for the fact of variance. So one thing you want to look at, which we haven't looked at really here, are these boxes here, and these are going to tell you quite a lot. Okay, so obviously you've got your profit, you've got your average profit trade, average win, average loss, profit factor, etc. ROI, which is really important. Obviously, the higher the better here. You've got your biggest win. You know what your biggest loss is. We're using £1 stakes. And your max drawdown, okay? But what I want you to focus on really is this. Longest losing streak, 56. Now, when I talked about all or nothing, that is the nothing, right? Because if you're using £1 stakes and you've got a £100 bankroll, 56 losers in a row is going to wipe over half your bankroll. Now, you might then have a couple of winners. What if you then lose another 50? You're wiped out. Okay, so that's where if you were using a strategy like this, you'd have to use really small stakes compared to your bank. And even with £1,000 bankroll, you might only want to be using like £1-2 stakes. I mean, I know it sounds mad, but that's just because of the nature of this specific strategy. Obviously, it's not normal for those kinds of losing streaks, but remember, we are getting in at any odds. With this, average odds are actually 25, which kind of helps explain that most of the time we are going for high priced horses. And yeah, I mean, we're seeing that there is potentially some value here, but like I say, it's very all or nothing. You've got the A&E index. If you don't know what this stuff is, there's a helpful little box. You can click the eyes and it will tell you, okay? So for a back strategy, it says here you want a value greater than 1. We've got 1.02. Not that high, and the Archie score is a really interesting one. And this is what tells you how kind of good your strategy is compared to how it could be chance versus a genuine edge. It's a measure of how robust your strategy is. And these are formulas we haven't obviously come up with ourselves. These are mathematic formulas that traders, even day traders, stock traders, and things like that will use, as well as obviously clever people who do sports betting and Betfair traders. So again, have a look at this stuff. Click the I boxes if you don't understand. And this software, like I say, is so powerful. It shows you so much, and it can be so good. It does take a little bit of learning, and you do need to watch a video like this. And if you've got to the end of this video and it's half an hour long, well done. But hopefully you will have a good idea now of how to get on with creating a strategy. And I've answered most of the questions you'll have. If you do have any more questions, get in touch with us. Just fire us over an email, info@lightspeedstats.com. We're always here to help you. That's all we're here to do. We want to help you. We want you to become a better horse racing trader. We want you to make money trading horses on Betfair and be able to come up with strategies yourself that are going to make money using this robust software. Like I say, if you aren't a member, obviously jump on board and get on board and learn how to use this software. If you are a member and you want me to send over some of the stats and some of the strategies to you, then let me know. And remember the presets, okay? That's kind of the thing that's worth looking at the end of it all. But don't forget the presets, because the presets will really help you as a Betfair trader. So yeah, hopefully that's answered your questions, and I'll be back with another training video very soon.